Welcome. I'm Dr. Gordon Saxe, and today we're going to be talking about how to create the roadmap to reach your health goals. Each of my patients who comes to see me has a different set of health goals, which may be to address a major health problem, to lose weight, or just to look and feel better. To help them, I like to offer a simple roadmap that uses the power of the plate, the foods we eat every day, to reach their goals. Often, people arrive with a number of commonly held dietary misconceptions. So, to begin, I'd like to dispel some of these myths and replace them with the facts that will lay the foundation for our roadmap to good health. One of the first dietary myths has to do with dairy and calcium. Often, people will ask me, isn't dairy the best source of the calcium we need for strong bones? There are two mistaken assumptions that underlie this question. Let's look at them one at a time. First, in spite of what we've been told, dairy is not the only or the best way to get calcium. Dairy often comes packaged with many things that at high levels may be bad for health. Saturated fat, too much protein, contaminants such as PCBs and dioxin, and growth factors that may be good for promoting the growth of a baby cow, but perhaps are questionable for an adult human, particularly if they have a disease like cancer involving uncontrolled cell growth. And it's easy to get calcium from a wide variety of plant sources. Leafy greens, such as kale, collards, bok choy, and broccoli. Sea vegetables, such as nori, the wrapper around sushi, and wakame, a common ingredient in miso soup. Soy foods, such as tempeh and tofu, and just about all whole grains, beans, seeds, and nuts. Second, there is more to the osteoporosis story than just calcium. Bone health requires many things. In particular, we need a strong, flexible bone matrix that serves as a scaffolding upon which minerals, mainly calcium, but also phosphorus, magnesium, and others, are deposited. So, while we need calcium, we also need other minerals. And this matrix is made up of a connective tissue called collagen, which, to be healthy, requires intake of vegetables and fruits, especially those containing vitamin C. We also need adequate vitamin D, ideally from moderate sun exposure, to enhance calcium absorption in the gut. The strength of our bones also requires lots of vitamin K from vegetables such as leafy greens, and adequate boron, a mineral for which dried fruits and nuts are an excellent source. For bone health, we also need to avoid excess protein. It turns out that protein digestion begins in the stomach with secretion of strong acids to cleave the protein into its respective amino acids. Too much protein can lead to an acidic condition, which the body then tries to neutralize by drawing calcium out of the bones, leading to bone thinning and eventually to osteoporosis. And finally, we don't want to forget weight-bearing exercise, which not only makes us stronger, but makes our bones stronger as well. Another commonly held dietary myth has to do with protein and meat. People will often ask, don't you need to eat meat to get enough protein? Indeed, the body needs a certain amount of protein for building tissues and for a variety of bodily functions. It turns out that we can easily meet our need for protein from plant sources, whole grains, beans, vegetables, and even fruit. However, if anything, the real issue is that Americans get too much protein. The recommended daily allowance for protein is around 50 grams per day, a little higher for women who are pregnant or lactating. However, the average protein intake in the U.S. is almost double this amount, mainly from animal products: beef, chicken, pork, milk, and eggs. Excess protein has been linked with a number of health problems, and according to Dr. Colin Campbell, researcher and author of the China study, the single biggest dietary risk factor for cancer is excess protein. One of the toxic byproducts of excess protein consumption is urea. The kidneys have to process urea and put it into the urine for excretion. And this is hard on the kidneys, and excess protein can push those with kidney disease into frank kidney failure. Excess protein also contributes to gout, a disease marked by the formation of uric acid crystals that accumulate in the joints and can lead to painful attacks. And of course, too much protein can contribute to osteoporosis. So, where do you get protein in a whole food plant-based diet? Protein is widely available in plant foods, including whole grains, vegetables, beans and legumes, and fruit. And yes, even fruit has protein. Particularly rich sources include soy foods, seitan, which is a meat substitute sometimes referred to as wheat meat, and the whole grain-like seed called quinoa. Another commonly held myth has to do with meat and iron. And the question often asked here is, don't you need to eat meat to get the iron needed to prevent anemia? Well, iron is needed as an integral part of many proteins and enzymes that maintain good health, particularly the proteins involved in oxygen transport. There are two forms of dietary iron, heme and non-heme. Heme iron is derived from hemoglobin, found in animal blood, our own, as well as the blood of beef, fish, and poultry. The iron found in plant foods is arranged in a chemical structure called non-heme iron. While heme iron is about twice as well absorbed as non-heme iron, which has erroneously led some people to argue that meat is preferable to plant foods as a source of iron, heme iron will continue to be absorbed even after iron stores are saturated, leading to possible excess iron in the body. And this can lead to iron overload, toxicity, and on rare occasion, even death. There's also growing evidence that excess iron may be an important contributor to heart disease. It's much easier to regulate iron intake from plant foods than from animal sources. You can't overdose on iron from plants, whereas you can on iron from animals. So the risk of diseases related to iron excess is much higher with heme than with non-heme iron. But what about the opposite? Isn't the risk of iron deficiency greater in vegans, that is, vegetarians who eat no food of animal origin, or in those following plant food diets? The answer appears to be no. Iron deficiency anemia is no more common in vegans or other vegetarians than in meat eaters. And the reason is that plants have plenty of iron too. It's also possible to greatly enhance the absorption of non-heme iron by combining it with a dietary source of vitamin C. A good idea during pregnancy or for those suffering from iron deficiency anemia. So, if meat isn't the best source of iron, what is? A particularly good source is leafy greens, which are high in both non-heme iron and vitamin C, which enhances the iron absorption. Other excellent sources include sea vegetables, which have over 12 times as much iron, ounce per ounce, as sirloin steak, blackstrap molasses, whole grains and beans, and dried fruit. There are also several other nutrients that are often asked about in regard to plant-based diets. One of these is vitamin B12, a vitamin important in the formation of red blood cells and essential for the health of nerves. Most people get B12 from meat or dairy. Non-meat or dairy sources include nutritional yeast, which is a popular source among vegans, and for those who are not vegan, fish. And a small amount can be obtained from fermented soy foods such as miso and tempeh, naturally prepared pickles and sauerkraut, and other fermented foods. It's also possible to take B12 as a supplement for anyone concerned about not obtaining enough in their diet. Another important nutrient, and not just for those on whole food plant-based diets, is vitamin D. There's growing evidence that vitamin D is protective against a number of diseases, including colon, breast, and prostate cancer, and that most people, not just vegans or vegetarians, have levels that are too low. The reason is that most folks don't get enough of the right kind of sun exposure. either because they live too far north or because they can't get out in the midday sun when ultraviolet B, the type of light that produces vitamin D on our skin, is the highest. So where do those on plant food diets get their vitamin D? Well, obviously the best source is sun exposure. For those for whom this is not possible, it can also be obtained from a couple other sources. For vegans, it can be obtained from supplemental natural vitamin D2. For non-vegans, it's also found in natural vitamin D3 supplements, as well as in fish. There's also growing interest in mushrooms as a source of vitamin D, particularly those grown under conditions in which they're exposed to ultraviolet light. Finally, what about trace minerals? Well, actually, this is a trick question because most of the best sources are from plants. If anything, this is an area where a plant-based diet really shines. Excellent sources include sea vegetables, which are constantly bathed in trace mineral-rich ocean water, as well as roots, onion family vegetables, which tend to concentrate the anti-cancer mineral selenium, blackstrap molasses, herbs, leafy greens, spirulina, and algae. So now, let's map out our road to good health. I suggest starting in the kitchen. Clear out the junk in your fridge, the cabinets, the drawers, all the parts of your kitchen. Replace these with fresh, wholesome foods with the 5 pillars in mind. What should you do with the old, unhealthy food? If possible, donate unused, non-perishable food to a soup kitchen or a food pantry. There are many hungry people who might want them. The next step is to begin creating order within yourself and then to extend it to those around you. Start by recognizing your own resistance, a first step toward effective action. Pay attention to moments of weakness and also notice how you are feeling when you eat, as well as how you feel afterwards. Begin to visualize what you need to do and start to create a plan of action. Identify potential allies and let them know you need their support and encouragement. And when the time is right, have a frank conversation with friends, family, and coworkers who may be potential impediments. Attempt to understand and respect their resistance. Begin visualizing creative solutions, win-win situations, and try to turn those who are resisting change into allies. Be loving, but firm and persistent. I'm doing some internal and external house cleaning, and I need your help. But the most important thing is getting started. Today, right now, you have the support of this program, your instructor, and your peers who are going through this with you. Take advantage of this opportunity to reclaim your health and begin to live your dream.